Geoff Woods, it's good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you, Hal.
Last time I saw you, we were playing pickleball, probably a week ago,
Sounds about right.
maybe two. Yeah,
Sounds about right.
actually. And you were filling in for me. It was you and my wife. I showed up late, and you and my wife were taking on Justin and Jennifer Donald. Man,
That's correct.
I love playing sport. You're one of my favorite people to play sports with because we have similar sense of humor, and both of us yell at ourselves in the third person when we mess up. But I think I learned that from you. You're like the Geoff Woods, you're better than that.
My self-talk is strong.
No, it's one of many areas that I strive to emulate you. So dude, all right, let's dive in. This is your third time on the podcast. I just looked it up. Last time was October 2020. So we're going on almost 4 years, which is kind of crazy. You're episode 252, you're episode 345, and then now you're episode 548, I think, give or take. I'll have to look that up. So the other reason I'm excited to have you on is, I mean, you're one of my favorite, most enjoyable people to be around. So there's that. But specifically, you're here to talk about AI, and it was almost embarrassed as I'm like, wait a minute. This is the first conversation I've had about AI on the podcast. First guest for sure. And I'm pretty sure I haven't talked about it because this is not something I'm almost in that camp of people that A, not an early adopter. B, I'm kind of hesitant. I'm kind of avoiding it. And I think I represent at least half of my audience with that position. And I know, half give or take, or like, what do you mean, dude? I use Chat GPT every day. Like I'm utilizing AI in my web design and in graphic design. And I mean, AI is very quickly becoming a source or a tool for just about anything and everything we do, especially if it's on our computer or on the web. So your niche is very specific though. The AI driven leader is your new book, right?
Yes.
Founder of AI leadership. So you're specifically teaching leaders how to use AI to grow their business, to streamline their operations. But I want to start with the basics for the rest of us, okay? And we're going to get into the leadership pieces. But let's start here. Why do you believe we should embrace AI? For anybody that's listening that's hesitant or resistant, let's start there.
I'm not going to say that everybody should embrace AI.
Okay. All right. Good start.
But I will give you the advice that I was given when I was a senior in college. I was interning for a startup tech company. And right before graduation, I sit down with the CEO and I ask him, what job should I get after school? And he looks at me, Hal, and he says, Geoff, you're asking the wrong question.
Okay.
You should be asking, what are the skills I can master that are so valuable they will serve me no matter where I go? And what jobs will help me get those skills? Best career advice I've ever had. When I saw generative AI for the first time, I found myself feeling like this might be the next skill. That if I can master this, might serve me no matter where I go. And so I approached very much with curiosity of how might this work? Will it even work? It fundamentally changed the way that I do what I do. And then it ended up leading me to me driving this through a whole organization and now starting a whole company around it. I genuinely believe that AI will enhance you, not replace you. And here is why. Hal, I want you to think about the decisions and things you have to think through on a weekly basis.
Okay.
You do all of that thinking and all those decisions based on what's up in your head, which is a collection of everything you've learned over your lifetime multiplied by the percent that you can recall in that moment, which is not very high.
Yeah, I've got brain
limited,
damage, man. Mine is, it's not good.
Right, which means our potential is limited by our ability to process information that we have learned over our lifetime. Now look at AI. It's like a really powerful calculator for your mind. It has been trained on 200 million books worth of data. And it can recall 100% of it in a fraction of a second. So now imagine a new relationship with you as the thought leader and AI is your thought partner. You have a situation like there's a situation you're dealing with right after this call. You've approached it the old way by asking, how might I approach this? I would approach that situation differently now. I would approach that saying, how might AI help me approach this? And I would go to AI as my thought partner and say, here's the situation. I'm going to have this type of a conversation. For context, this is the history of the relationship. Here's the outcome that I'm looking for. I want you to interview me, to ask a few questions, to get some deeper context. And then I want you to lay out how you would approach this conversation. You then are getting to tap into all this data that you've never learned or don't have the ability to recall and bring it front and center, not so that you implement it, but so that you have another perspective to consider.
Wow.
This is how AI can help you make faster, smarter decisions.
That's brilliant. I mean, okay, I'm sold. Like, I mean, that perspective. And I've heard someone else talk, Rene Rodriguez, I was talking to recently on my podcast, and he told me, I think it was off the show, but he said that's how he's using AI essentially, right? It's just, it's his thought partner, and it's helping him think through things. And you think about, like, often if you talk to a friend and you're like, hey man, I need another perspective, and then their perspective is different from yours, and you go, oh my God, no, that's so helpful. Thank you. But to your point, having access to 200 million books, including those by the most effective moms, dads, leaders, right? Like, instantly, hey, this is, as opposed to one person's perspective, here's the consolidated perspective of the collective consciousness of humanity that's been input into this. Okay, that's profound. I want to real quick play devil's advocate, or even just, I guess, ask you,
Sure.
are there any realistic concerns that we should have?
Absolutely.
Okay, and I'm going to represent a couple things. Number one, when I was a kid, I saw this movie Terminator 2. You've probably seen it. That was probably my first introduction to AI, and I'm like, so okay, the robots are going to take over. Okay, so I'm halfway joking there, but I've had conversations with Tom Bilyeu, and Tom is going hardcore into AI, into his business. He's had a lot of thought leaders talking about it, and he even says this is either going to be the greatest thing that ever happened to humanity, or it's going to be the end of humanity, which is a pretty bold, right? I mean, that's and he doesn't say that in jest. We've had serious conversations about that. So what should people be concerned about? What's the worst case scenario? What's the likely scenario? What are your thoughts?
When I was writing the AI driven leader, I knew I had to talk about the risks, and I was really struggling to put it into words. One morning I was driving my daughter Daphne to school. It was a rainy morning, and we're about to turn onto the freeway, and we hit a red light, and I see it's just bumper to bumper traffic. And I'm thinking, oh, it's going to take so long. But my daughter sees it differently, and she goes, yay, Daddy, we get more time together. I'm like, oh, so good. And she asks me this question, Hal, that really stopped me. And as I was about to answer her, instead of asking how might I answer Daphne, I found myself asking how might AI help Daphne get the answer. And so I opened up AI and I put it into audio mode, and I said, why don't you try asking AI that question? And she asked it. The light turns green. I pull onto the freeway. For the next 10 minutes, I listened to Daphne have this deep conversation with AI, and how I was so excited because I felt like this was a defining moment, like her first interaction with AI. But what was interesting was how my excitement quickly turned to fear and anxiety.
Yeah, I was going to say that was my first reaction when you told me that. I'm like, whoa, she's talking to the robot. Okay.
AI appeared so empathetic that I was going, holy smokes. I could imagine a world where it learns her better than another human being, and it's able to show up in a way that builds better rapport and connection than a human. Like, how do I teach her the difference between a relationship with a human versus a relationship with a machine? She was asking it questions and it was giving her answers, and she was just accepting it as truth. How do I teach her to understand the difference between fact versus hallucination, which is when AI just makes things up? How do I teach her to understand what you do share with AI and what you do not share with AI from a privacy standpoint? We ended up getting to school early. And so I pulled into a coffee shop and I saw this as a real teaching moment. So I sat down with her and I asked her, how was that? And she said, I feel like I have a new bestie.
Okay.
And I then walked through and explained to her that richness comes from the moments that matter with the people that matter most.
Mm.
AI will be a part of your life, but you need to understand the difference between a relationship with a machine versus a relationship with a human. I also explained to her that AI is just a prediction machine. Like if I say the sky is, you think blue. It barks like a dog. That's all AI is doing, is predicting the next word. So you also have to be discerning of what it gives you and validate if it's fact or not. So I then taught her how to fact check AI. I helped her understand that all the things AI has been trained on gives it biases
Mm.
that you need to be aware of. And I also talked to her about how if what you're sharing with AI, you wouldn't feel comfortable being blasted out to the world, then you shouldn't share it with AI unless you're using a model that has the right privacy requirements. So these, I believe, are the generic risks. And then there's two more: job loss, and then you brought up the humanity thing. Let me tackle job loss first. I wanted to be really smart about this when I was writing the book. So I went back and I researched the printing press, the steam engine, the assembly line, electricity, internet, the last 5 major technological disruptions. Here's what I realized. Technology changes the skills that are valued and the processes that we follow. And that is all your job is. Like your job right now, Hal, is a bunch of skills that you apply and a bunch of processes that you follow.
Okay.
AI will change which skills are valued and it will change which processes we follow. And in every technological shift, we adapt. So here's why I actually believe this is good news. Most of people's, I learned this when I was running the company behind the one thing. Most of people's days is spent bouncing from meetings to meetings and being drowning in low value tasks. If I told you that AI could already augment or automate half of what you do, that scares some people. I believe that's fantastic news because that can liberate you from the low value tasks that keep you from actually achieving your goals and can free you up to harness your strengths, focused on the priorities of your role, aligned with the goals of your company, and then supercharged with AI. But you have to have a growth mindset to be able to take advantage of this.
Well, and I think that's such an important statement to make, which is AI is inevitable, right? Like we can resist it all we want. We can think it's negative, or that what if it becomes smarter than we, on and on. What if having a relationship with a machine, people decide to do that because, like you said, it's able to be more empathetic. And so then they're choosing to have I mean, like they're like the sci-fi implications here are very real, but the point being, it is inevitable, right? AI is here and it is inevitable. So how are we going to work with it? And that was Tom Billio's point, which is like, he's like, it's you can put your head, hide your head under the covers all you want. Like it's not going away. In fact,
Correct.
It's only going to become more prevalent in our society and in our life. And so rather than live in fear of what if it replaces my job, it's like you said, what are the skills I can develop? And somebody I forgot who it was, but I was watching a video on YouTube and they pointed this out, which is that if you have children right now, I would absolutely have them focus on learning how to use AI because that is the future. Just like when the internet was new and people back then, that were old school were like, I don't like this internet. You can just send something across somebody, whatever it was. Where it's like, no, you better learn the internet. You better learn coding because it's not going away.
Correct.
Or learn to be a plumber or an electrician, right? Like that, and that's like, those are real conversations I've had with my kids. Like, hey, learn AI. And it's actually learn AI and learn real useful real world skills that AI likely can't replace. What was your journey to AI? Or go ahead, what you're going to say?
So let's hit the skills, then I'll tell you how I got here.
Yeah.
Technology changes the skills that are valued and the processes that we follow. When the assembly line came out, it created a tectonic shift in the skills that were applied. Before the assembly line, products were made by craftsmen, handmade, start to finish, lots of pride, lots of ownership. It required certain skills. But during the Industrial Revolution, there's factories that are booming. It's 1900 and John D. Rockefeller is running Standard Oil. He sees all of these factories booming and he goes, hey, we need people to work the factory jobs. But he realizes we have a problem. The education system was teaching critical thinking and inquiry. And he even went on record as saying, we don't need a nation of thinkers. We need a nation of workers. So in 1902, he gave $1 million to start the General Education Board with one sole purpose: to reshape the education system to create industrial workers. And over the next 20 years, he ended up giving, I think, close to $100 million. And it stopped teaching kids critical thinking and started teaching them show up on time, take direction from a superior, do something repeatedly and memorize the steps and do it with minimal error. That's the skill that would be required for the Industrial Revolution. It worked. The problem is we had to set aside our humanity to meet the needs of the machine. That is going to change. All those things that we now do, if you are focused on being a task master, those skills are going to go down in value. The skills that will be valued in the future in an AI-driven world: strategic thinking, problem solving, communication, collaboration. These are the skills that make us uniquely human that, frankly, we have not harnessed our entire lives, that I believe AI has the opportunity to return us to. Interesting, right?
Yeah.
So here's how I got into this. So when I came on the last 2 times, I was running the company behind the One Thing.
Yeah.
Great opportunity. I loved the work very much. Had the opportunity to actually have an exit and sell my shares in early 2022. That came with a 2-year non-compete. So I had to do something. I was willing to take 2 years off to figure out the next chapter, but I ended up getting a call from a guy named Naveen Jindal, who's the chairman of Jindal Steel and Power. It's one of the largest steel companies in the world. I had been his coach when I was with the One Thing, and I'd been coaching his executive team. And when he found out I left, he calls me and he says, "Hey, would you come in-house?" And I said, "Maybe. What's the job?" And he said, "You tell me." So I stepped in as their chief growth officer, and they kind of operate like a family office. They have a whole bunch of companies that roll up to the Jindal Group. My job was to sit at the group level next to the chairman and his family to understand their vision for the future, but then to work with the executive teams of every operating company to drive growth. We ended up taking one of their companies, Jindal Steel, which is the listed company. We took them from $750 million to $12 billion.
Wow.
And I did that by focusing on 4 things: strategy, execution, people, and technology. Strategy is the competitive advantage you want to build in the long run through the actions you take in the short run. Execution: what's my plan to achieve my goals? People: do I have the right people in the right seats doing the right things? And technology: how am I harnessing tech to help our people execute execute against our plan to achieve our goals and our strategy? While I was there, I came across AI. I saw it as the future. I just said, I'm going to start learning this myself. I want to figure out, is this real?
Right? Sorry to interrupt, but 2 years ago, just to get
2 years.
Okay, right? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, literally the month after ChatGPT came out, I saw it.
Okay.
And so it was that early. And I started playing with it. And as I became proficient, I ended up having a conversation with the chairman, and I said, "This is the future." And he goes, "I agree." I said, "Well, we should drive this into the companies." And he said, "I agree." "Well, you're the chairman of the board. You have to own this at the board level if you want this to happen." And he goes, "How about you do it for me?" So now I'm asking the question, how do you drive AI across a company of our size, which we had 100,000 people across the world?
Wow.
Now every quarter I'm flying to India. I'm meeting at the Google headquarters in Delhi, sitting down with their developers. I'm looking at use cases. We're tuning models. And eventually, Hal, I'm looking up and going, I'm playing too small because I'm doing this all in one sandbox. And I saw a huge void in the market because all the thought leaders on AI were tech companies pushing it as a solution, looking for a problem, telling people, if you don't adopt this in 6 months, you're going to be out of business, which I believe is just hype. And so I felt like there was a real need for transparent, ethical advice to leaders on how to adopt the technology, which is why I started AI Leadership and wrote the AI Driven Leader.
Brilliant, man. So, like most good things in this world, right? It organically evolved from a need, from an opportunity. So the AI driven leader, you've said that AI it's not for everybody. Obviously, you do believe it is for leaders. What I know that in the book you interviewed over 200 executives. What'd you learn from those folks that maybe that surprised you or that was helpful?
This was a gut punch. My gosh. So I resigned from Jindal. This was a very lucrative job.
Okay.
And I burnt the boats to start a company because I was so convinced that AI was the future and that everybody would literally just throw money at me if I said, I'm building an AI business. And I started interviewing leaders to understand what's on their mind. And I asked the same 3 questions. Do you believe AI is the future? Will you adopt it? What have you done? 100% said it's the future. 100% said they would adopt it. Less than 5%, Hal, had done anything.
Got it.
And so I'm going, holy smokes, I just quit a job to build a business that solves a problem that people are saying is not a problem. But then as I really peeled the onion back, I realized the reason is they're too busy and they don't know where to start. And so that actually became the opportunity around the book, which is how do I show, while the book is written for leaders, I wouldn't say any person who is a professional, even if you do not have direct reports, this applies to you. How do I help you understand how to go from 0 to 1 so that it enhances you, it does not replace you, and now you gain a competitive advantage in your career?
Got it. So let's get right to what are the ways that a leader can use AI?
I believe that your ability to think strategically is the difference between growing your business or going out of business. But there are all these things that stop us from thinking more strategically. We don't have enough time. We don't have access to the right data. We have biases and assumptions that lead us in the wrong direction. And there's this constant pressure to do more with less and deliver results yesterday. But this is where, again, Hal, my realization is using it as your thought partner to elevate your strategic thinking and to help you make faster, smarter decisions is so valuable, and it is so simple. Most people, however, that's not where they start. They start by using it to write a better email or for social media posts or for a blog. That does not create business value. That is not going to help you achieve your goals faster. I would say that is an 80% use case that only drives 20% of the results. I want to teach people to focus on the 20% use cases that drive 80% of the results. And that's where it comes down to how you think.
So give me an example, a real life example, either from you or a leader that you've worked with.
This happened 3 weeks ago. I was sitting down with a group of CEOs, and I was asking them what their problems were. What's a really big problem you have that you are trying to solve that's going to require you to think strategically? And one guy looks at me and goes, okay, I got one. I'm a manufacturing company. I leased a bunch of equipment from a company out of Japan. The debt structure is killing my company. We're literally going to go bankrupt if we don't get the debt restructured. And I looked at him, I said, I'm so sorry. What have you done? And he said, I've gone all the way up to the board of this Japanese company. But because they're publicly traded, they are refusing to restructure the debt because they're worried it will make them lose face in Japanese society.
Okay.
Okay.
That sounds like a complex problem that I would have no idea where to even start with.
What do you do? What do you do? And so I said, okay, let's try this. And so I opened up AI, specifically ChatGPT in this use case, and I wrote the following prompt. I'm the CEO of a manufacturing company. We leased all this capital equipment from Japan. Like, I gave all the context I just shared with you and your audience. Then I said, I want you to act as an investment banker with deep expertise in restructuring debt. So that's me tuning like 200 million books worth of data. I want it to compress down to the books that matter most to this situation.
Yeah.
I want you to interview me by asking one question at a time, up to 3 questions, so that you can gain additional context. Then I want you to generate 5 non-obvious strategies I could consider that could help restructure the debt. List them in order of priority and explain your reasoning for each. And for additional context, here's what we've done in the past and why it didn't work. So let's pause. Some of you, your mind just went, holy crap. This is not another Google. If you have been treating it like another Google or thinking this is something to be an assistant to help you write better emails, you are selling yourself short. Immediately, AI asks a question. Do you have relationships with any other influential executives in Japanese society that this board might respect? Hal, I watched, the CEO almost fell off his chair. What a question. And he goes, actually, I do. And so we start putting in who those people are. And then it asks 2 more questions very much around Japanese culture. And then it goes, great, here's 5 non-obvious strategies ranked in order of priority. The very first one was the Saving Face Consortium. It suggested that this person actually had enough relationships with other executives that he approached these people and offered them extremely favorable terms to restructure the debt, essentially acquire the debt from this company. So they would take it because it's a great ROI, and the debt would get restructured and the company would get to save face. And the guy looks at me and goes, I've been wrestling with this for 90 days. It's literally going to put us out of business. And in less than 10 minutes, you actually showed me something that I think can save our company.
Wow.
Your ability to think strategically is the difference between growing your business or going out of business. The old way of doing it is relying on the context that you have and the information that you can process in the moment. And I'm telling you, with your thought leadership, you can use AI's thought partnership to give you way more data and a completely different perspective so you can make faster, smarter decisions.
My mind's a little bit blown. But this brings up this for me, Geoff, the importance of the prompt, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which for anybody that's not familiar with ChatGPT or using AI, right? The prompt being what Geoff just gave an example of. This is what he told it's the input he gave to the AI that was so specific, told them what type of person they needed to be, an investment banker to draw on those resources, told him like, and I'd imagine in the book, that's something that I
Sure.
would guess go in depth on.
Yeah, and I think of it this way. Well, how important is communication to your relationship with Ursula?
I knew you were going to go there for some reason. Yeah, my wife Ursula. It's pretty important.
Yeah, your quality of communication determines the quality of your relationship. I would say that most people are probably average when it comes to effective communication.
Mm-hmm.
It is a skill we have not had to master because we set it aside to meet the needs of machines. It is going to become absolutely critical with AI. Your ability to communicate with AI determines the quality of your result. So when you write a prompt, I want you to think of it like a recipe. If I opened your fridge, I would see certain ingredients. You don't use every ingredient in every single recipe, and you don't use the same quantity of every ingredient. It's the same with a prompt for AI. So let me give you some of the communication ingredients that help. Always describe the task. I'm amazed at how many people I'll watch them and they don't clearly tell AI what they want it to do. And then they wonder why AI didn't do what they wanted it to do. Look in the mirror. You need to, I will literally say, your task is to, and I will answer the question. Always give context. While AI has been trained on so much data, it doesn't have your context, your experience that will make it valuable to your life. So you need to be willing to share the context. I told it the type of company, the situation with the company in Japan, the type of solutions that we had proposed in the past and why they didn't work. That's why it was able to harness it so well. Assigning a persona. Just like in The Matrix, Keanu Reeves did not know Kung Fu until they pushed a button, uploaded data into his mind, and then he knew Kung Fu. When you assign a persona to AI, like in my case, an investment banker with deep expertise in restructuring debt, it will adopt that persona based on the data it's been trained on. So you can ask it, like in your situation, Hal, the person you're about to have a call with, you could have said, I want you to adopt the persona of this person. And then you could have described them in vivid detail and actually asked AI to role play the conversation with you. I've done this.
Okay.
So describe the task, give context, assign the persona. And then I call this one the salt and pepper, asking AI to interview you. When you ask AI to be an oracle and just generate answers out of thin air, you're on a path to be disappointed. But if you put AI in the driver's seat of interviewing you to gather additional context and then to specifically to accomplish a task, oh, baby, that is so, so powerful. So let me show you, on the content creation side. When I was doing the book, I took the cover of the book, the copy of the book, uploaded it to AI, and I said, you're my ideal customer. I then described the ideal reader in vivid detail. I said, I want you to review the cover of the book. I then want you to interview me and ask me up to 5 questions to learn more about the problems I'm trying to solve. And then I want you to come back and tell me what you like about my cover copy, what you don't like about it, and the top changes I should make to it. So you'd see it and you would automatically say, I want to buy that book. This applies to everyone who works, because you have to create things, and you create it with the assumption that it's actually going to deliver the result or persuade whoever needs to be persuaded. I'm now saying you have a thought partner at your fingertips that you can put your marketing copy in front of it, ask it to adopt the persona of your customer, and give you feedback on it and make it better.
Brilliant. So again, it's for anyone that works, period.
Literally.
If you're a professional. Okay.
If you are a professional and you work, done. I mean, even my wife stays at home with the kids. She has the hardest job of all. Literally the other day, she was making gluten-free pancakes and they weren't holding together. And she's freaking out and she's going, oh my gosh, I'm going to throw the batter out and start over. I go, hold on, where's the recipe? And she showed it to me on her phone. I screenshot it, sent it to myself, uploaded that to ChatGPT and said, here's the pancakes we're making. They're not binding. What can we add so that they will bind? And it used optical character recognition to read the image, understood the recipe, and said, add some arrowroot powder.
Wow.
Done.
That's incredible, man. What would you recommend for someone that is not familiar with AI starting out? Is it download ChatGPT to their phone or computer? Like, what is the first step?
Sure. First step is you just making a commitment to exploring if this is the next skill for you. It's mindset first. Wherever you are on the spectrum, from optimistic to skeptical to straight up fearful, you developing a level of literacy in understanding what AI is and how it works will get you out of emotions and into logic. It will help you make better choices moving forward on if you should adopt it, and if so, how. So that's step one.
I love
step
that.
Two is you can download a LLM, large language model. So here's some options for you: ChatGPT, Claude, Claude, Gemini, that's Google's product, and then Perplexity is a great one for research. I also have one on my website at aileadership.com that has been specifically trained on the content of the book to be a thought partner for you. It's free. If you just hit aileadership.com, you'll see it on the website. Pick one. Yeah. Just start somewhere and then start practicing interacting with it. I would tell you, approach with curiosity rather than an expectation of a result, because you will try, you will swing, and you will miss, and you will think it's not a good use of your time. And it's specifically because you just don't know where to start. So if you hit my website again, aileadership.com, I have a free crash course on there that will teach you kind of the foundations. It will walk you through the prompt ingredients. I also have a prompt library with pre-written prompts that you can just copy and paste and use. The goal is that you can have what I call the light bulb moment, where you see AI turn a relatable moment into a remarkable experience. Because once you have that, you go, holy smokes, this is incredible. Now you actually want to go through the curve of learning this.
Yeah.
Once that happens, I'm going to promise you're going to fall off the cliff and you're going to have the reality check, because you don't yet know how to communicate with AI. That's where you got to focus on those prompt ingredients. And if you write good quality prompts, when you step up to the plate and swing the bat, you're going to connect with the ball. You're going to start building momentum. Then you'll be accelerating progress. And eventually you'll just be expanding what's possible.
I love the way that you think. I love that when I asked you, what's the next step? Should we download ChatGPT? I basically gave you two options: ChatGPT on our phone or on our computer. Which of those is the next step? And you're like, no, it's deciding whether or not it's valuable for you to learn about AI, to develop a skill related to some sort of, starting out with competency, right? And then going beyond that. But because here's the thing, we fear what we don't understand. And I'm at that place where I understand AI a lot more based on this conversation. I understand it a bit from before. But no, I'm going to commit to, I have to learn about it. And it's like, I'm literally taking my own advice that I said earlier, which is like, hey guys, this is inevitable. It's not going anywhere. So you're either going to be in the dark, right? Or you're going to learn what it is, learn what its limitations and capabilities are, and learn how to use it. And because of the way that you think, Geoff, I do love, I've ordered a copy of, the AI Driven Leader.
Thank you.
What is your goal with the book, by the way?
3 goals. 1, to bring a lot of value to people. Most people know it's the future, but they don't know where to start. I wanted to show people where to start in a place that would matter, that would actually deliver results and help them achieve their goals, which is why my focus is on strategic thinking.
Yeah.
Second was to position me as an authority in the space. And third is then it becomes a driver of the whole business behind which, we do workshops for teams. We've got communities that help people go on the journey together. We do consulting to actually help businesses grow. And then we have a tech offering as well.
Yeah. And for anyone that doesn't know, what you did, you're doing basically now a similar model to what you did with The One Thing. And The One Thing is the, over 1 million copies sold book by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, one of my, top 10, top 20 favorite books. And I do remember I actually tried to hire you when you told me you were leaving them, and you were like, "Nah, I'm going to do my own thing." But because I know how brilliant you are, and I know what you did with The One Thing, and so yeah, man, you're I'm excited for you as a friend, because this is the perfect niche for you. So the book is The AI Driven Leader. Everybody go check that out. AIleadership.com. I literally just brought that up in my browser, so that's a great place to start. Leveraging the free resources. And remember, the next step is it's not the tech, it's the mindset. It's realizing this is something that is inevitable. And you're either going to be, you're either going to be aware of how to utilize it in your life and your work, or you're not. So I would encourage us all to take that next step. Geoff, I love you, brother. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Hal.
All right. Talk to you soon, brother. Take care.